Hey everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Creative Cast. Saturday was the 20th anniversary of 9/11. It's hard to believe that it's been 20 years. So 20 years ago, I had just put my 3.5-year-old daughter on the bus for her preschool, and I was very pregnant at 29 weeks. In fact, my daughter was born about 5 to 6 weeks later. Crazy, right? We all remember where we were, what we were doing, who we were with. We all have those stories. And all those stories matter. Your story matters. So if you didn't get a chance to do this over the weekend, I want you to take some time today to remember all those impacted by the tragedy of 9/11. The heroes, the fallen, the families, the aftermath. And whether you were personally impacted or maybe you weren't even born yet, it is worth telling those stories, and it's worth listening to those stories because they really, really matter. Everyone's story matters. Okay, so let's talk podcasting, or more specifically, niche podcasting. So I received this question from my friend Savana down in Alabama. Hey, Savannah. And she says, I am in the process of researching some ideas for my podcast. I want to be able to launch my podcast starting in 2022. What is better, a niche topic or a more general, broad topic? First, congrats on doing research for your podcast. This is one of the things I think a lot of people skip, is doing a lot of research and spending time developing. And so kudos to you for that. And let me know when your podcast launches, because I would love to take a listen to it. Maybe even have you on the show. Secondly, this goes directly to your question. The thing about the generic podcast, or the generic topic podcast, is I want you to remember that not everyone's going to want to tune into your podcast. They're just not going to be a right fit for it. And seriously, not everyone is a jar of Nutella, right? A lot of times this happens in marketing, it happens with creating podcasts, it happens in a lot of different areas. We think bigger is better. The more opportunity, the bigger net we cast, the more fish we're going to get in. And that's not necessarily true. So whether you're starting out a podcast or a business or anything like that, it's so easy to think broader is better because you want your show, your business to appeal to everybody, right? No. Now, the only caveat is if you already have a massive platform, then go with it. But if you don't, you need to narrow your focus and choose a niche that you can carve out as your own. Why? Because otherwise it's going to be very difficult to stand out in the sea of millions of podcasts globally. So think of it like a bow and arrow. When you shoot a bow and arrow, what do? You focus on the bullseye. That's exactly what I want you to be thinking about when you're trying to decide what topic you're going to focus on for your podcast, or it may be. But we're talking specifically podcasting here. And the reason for all this is it helps you more easily define the concept of your show. And the easier it is to define that, the more likely you're going to be able to separate your show, your podcast, from all the other podcasts that are out there. This is especially true if the topic is something where there's a lot of podcasts in. Motherhood, parenting, health and wellness, fitness. There's thousands of podcasts out there about these particular topics. Now, if you already have a following, people are going to be searching for you and your specific content. And you can afford to be more general because you are the niche. So let's take someone like Dax Shepard and his podcast. Now, Dax can attract an immediate audience of millions of people by just saying, hey, I'm starting a podcast about all the cool stuff that interests me, because he's already put the work in to cultivate that following. And he has lots of things that he can talk about. He could bring celebs on. He can talk about what's happening in his life. He could talk about the movies that he's in. He could talk about his wife and his kids and all other things, everything he wants to talk about. And the reason he could talk about whatever he wants to talk about is because his point of view is the niche that people are interested in rather than the topics that he's focusing on. Now, unfortunately, it takes a bit of a time to build up a following like this. So if you want to stand out, and we all do, you're better off being a really big fish in a small pond. And that, my friends, means that you need to pick something that has a little bit less competition. Niching downward doesn't mean that you could only talk about one thing for the rest of your podcast's life or your life. No, absolutely not. But it does mean, especially for your podcast, it means that you need to find a filter for your content. So let's just say you're interested in starting a podcast in the fitness industry. It's going to be much harder to stand out there if your show only covers kind of the basics. So then you would have to find a niche within that topic area. So let's say, for example, you used to be really lazy when it came to fitness, but you found a way to make it exciting and fun and appealing, so much more than just sitting on your couch and going, yeah, I probably should exercise today. And that's a niche people are going to be looking for content in. So let's just say that you started a podcast called Fitness for Lazy People. Now, that sounds like the podcast for me, but it really wouldn't matter if you didn't have a large following out there, because that content is going to be specific enough to appeal to people searching in that niche. And that can be enough to make someone listen. Because a title like Fitness for Lazy People or Wellness for Lazy People is going to give your show A bit of personality, and B, it says to people who maybe are having difficulty getting motivated, hey, this show is for you. And that is exactly what you need if you want people to press play without knowing anything about you. Now, I know that some of you are out there going, but Tammy, what if I like to talk about everything? Totally fine. Being interested in a million different topics is fine, but you need to find a way to deliver that content. It's okay to create multiple projects if you can find a coherent way to fit everything under that one big umbrella. Your content niche becomes the common thread that binds all of your topics of interest together, so it makes sense to your audience. So let's just take Creative Cast here for a second. Every episode that I do, whether it's just me talking to you guys or it's an interview guest that I have on, it's going to be something related to podcasting. So we've had Melody on the show, and Melody talked about marketing in podcasting. I've talked to you numerous times about starting a podcast and editing and tips and tricks for different things and workflows and all these things that surround in launching a podcast and sustaining your podcast. Everything that I talk about or we have a guest on is going to help you grow your podcast in some way, shape, or form, right? Now, if you're talking about wildly different things every week and people don't know who you are, it's going to be really hard for them to go, well, why would I want to listen to that? You talk about everything under the sun. I don't need to know about gardening tips. I'm here for the fitness. I'm here for the nutrition. I'm here to learn more about how I can get more exercise into my daily life. But if you create a lens, basically, through which every piece of content is filtered, you're going to start to build a show, a podcast, that makes sense and is appealing to potential listeners. So, for example, let's say you're a counselor, family therapist, you work in mental health, and you want to create a show where you get to talk about everything from The Bachelor to foreign policy and politics. Now, because of your area of expertise is utilizing psychology, you could do this by explaining the psychology behind the behaviors that you're exploring. That way you could talk about reality TV, COVID, Afghanistan, even the way someone cut you off in traffic. Anything. Because the lens you're covering each topic through has that common thread that binds your episodes together. Your listeners are going to know exactly why you're talking about reality TV one week and maybe foreign policy the next. And even if you're still discussing wildly different topics, but you're doing it in a way that makes sense and it gives your audience a reason to listen to your show. And that is the essence of finding your content niche. So if you're struggling to come up with one thing on how you can niche down your show or your topic, I want you to think about what sets you apart, or what personal experience or perspective you can offer that no one else can. What is your story? What is your calling? What is your passion? Because you don't have to stop having multiple interests. I mean, we all have multiple interests. You just need to find an angle that gives people a reason to care. So when you are choosing a niche, I want you to narrow down enough to draw in your ideal listener, but also stay broad enough that you have content to talk about through each week. I don't want you to focus so narrowly that you're racking your brain each week to figure out what you're going to say. And the best way to figure this out is define your ideal listener, their avatar, profile, whatever you want to call it. Develop your main topic and then look at those pillar content. What other things surrounding that main topic can you talk about? So for like this show, we talk about podcasting, but there's lots of things about podcasting. There's microphones, there's tech, there's the business of podcasting, there's stats, there's analysis, there's the legal issues of podcasting. And by the way, we'll be talking about that next week. So now if you are creating content, creating your podcast, whatever stage you're in, and you all of a sudden realize that your main topic is really more of a subcategory and you can't really go further with it, I want you to back it up a little bit, look at the bigger picture, and define a slightly broader topic. I don't want you to go full generality, but just slightly broader. Now, what I want you to remember about all this is this. You don't need to have a large audience or following. You don't need to have a super general topic that you're talking about to have a successful podcast. A smaller, highly engaged audience that trusts you will be more profitable than any large audience that just passively listens. So creating an engaged audience that trusts you will begin with niching down. Your audience will be as passionate or interested in the topic as you are. You will build trust and a reputation with them by being the expert in your field. Plus, you're going to be able to create monetization and growth opportunities for your podcast. I also wanted to take a moment to tell you guys about something that my friend Allie Worthington has created. Now, Allie and I have been friends for years. I absolutely love her. You've heard me talk about her on the show before. But Allie is also my business coach, and she has helped turn my business around, like completely turn it around, and doubled my revenue. Seriously, y'all. She's fabulous. So she has created something called the Coach School. Now, it's a 12-week program that is going to teach you everything you need to know about building and growing a coaching business that is rewarding and wealth building. Now, a lot of times, and I hear this from different clients that are certified life coaches, but they're struggling building their business. And so they utilize podcasting as a way to do that. Great for it. But if you want to know really how to grow your coaching business or really any business, you want to go and check out the Coach School. Like I said, it's 12 weeks. You're going to get a dedicated mentor that's going to help you through the program, placement in a mastermind of like 5 to 7 students where you're going to get support, be able to hold each other accountable, and you also get a weekly live group coaching with Allie herself. So I want you to go over and check out thecoachschool.com. You can also find them on Instagram at thecoachschool, or if you really need the link, go to my Instagram and send me a DM and I will send you directly to that. Also, the other thing is I got a special code that I'm going to pass along to each and every one of you. So if you want to get the program over at the Coach School, I highly recommend it. I've been through it myself. It is absolutely fantastic. Use the code TAMMY, TAMMY, and you will get $100 off of it. So thank you so much for tuning in today. I truly appreciate it. I love our time together, and I love having these conversations with you. So like I mentioned earlier, next week, I'm going to be getting into some of the legal issues in podcasting. Now, I've kind of talked a little bit about this before on other episodes, but we're really going to take a deeper dive this time. We're going to talk about music, about some of the copyright laws and how you can use music, images, other copyright things, ownership rights, should you have an agreement with your guest and or co-host, all different kinds of things like that. So make sure to tune in next week to the show. And if you have any questions, as always, please don't forget you can drop me an email at support@tammymunsoncreative.com. Or if you're on Instagram, follow me at Tammy_Munson and send me a DM. I would love, love, love to hear from you. Now, ladies, I believe in you. Y'all are my heroes. I believe inexperience, production fatigue, and intimidating tech should not hold you back. So let's walk through this journey together to spend less time worrying about the details and more time spreading your message. I hope that you have a great day, and I will talk to you next Monday. Bye, y'all.